think. All right, so I think we are just about to come on. All right, we're live. All
Okay,
right,
yeah, that's better.
cool. So we're here once again with Rod, my buddy. We're going to talk a little bit about developing spooky bedtime stories.
Okay.
So we may come up on the fly with some stuff, but we want to use some one that's I think everyone already knows. But before we get into it, what we with the month of we're in the month of October. We got Halloween right around the corner. We came up with this idea, and we wanted to be able to give you some I concepts of possibly using fandoms and things that you already are familiar with, and let's see how much additional like spookiness we can add to it. So a few minutes ago, we were talking about setting the scene, right? So I know when I was a kid, my mom used to put my sister and I to bed, and in order to even get us to say yes, let's agree to going to sleep right now, we would ask for that bedtime story, and so she would tuck us in, and then start the whole process. She would cut the lights down. She would even have like a voice that she would do, right, to kind of set the mood for what we were getting into. And so it was Three Little Pigs, right? We all know the story of Three Little Pigs. You have these entrepreneurs who have in the construction business who have these apparently they must have licenses to actually build, right? And I think the spookiest thing for anyone who's building or has built a house is when it's in the inspector's time to come around and actually check on the work that you've done. But what I wanted to say is, maybe these houses are haunted in some kind of way, and the wolf in the story ends up becoming like a ghost hunter. What do you think? A ghost hunter for these Three Little Pigs houses, where you go to one house and you sort of detect something that's connected to a tragedy that actually happened in the village where these pigs live, or the city that these pigs live. Um, what do you think?
That's an interesting take on it.
Okay.
Ghosting, or what if the pigs themselves are the ghosts,
Ooh,
and the wolf has already previously killed a bunch of pigs,
there we go.
and actually what he's doing is going to their residences that were already there, and what you see responding to him are actually the ghosts of the pigs that are afraid because they're constantly reliving the horror of being killed over and over again. in
Oh
those
my
homes.
gosh. So for each house, there would be like a certain way that the the death of these one pig itself, not just the collapse of the house, but then to exercise the house.
Yeah,
The wolf is coming in to actually be that ghost hunter to maybe capture him or use him for another nefarious like kind of scheme he may have.
maybe, or the only two that are actually alive is the one surviving pig that was smart enough to have the
The
house
wee
made
wee?
of brick,
Ah, yes.
and the wolf themselves. But the other two pigs in the story
Mhm.
are actual ghosts that didn't survive because they had the poorly built houses they was able to get
How
into.
about that?
It's kind of crazy with you think of bedtime stories.
Mhm.
There's really kind of two factions. There's the regular bedtime story we're actually trying to get the kid to go to sleep.
The moral, right?
The moral story that
Yeah.
the kids
So it looks like we got our. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Concept was a little too strong, but no, that was great. I love the idea that we all know three little pigs. We all know that they had the houses the way they did, but to have a surviving pig, but then to have this wolf, ghost hunter trying to track down his family members, that would turn the pig into a totally different person. And then maybe he's able to then flip the script and it becomes something spooky. Say, okay, I know what you're trying to do with my family members. Yeah. Here we go. We're gonna make this right. Keep going. Okay.
So maybe it's the pig who's actually doing it. The pig is actually hunting the wolf now. Right. Type thing. Yeah. And we're just seeing the responses from the ghosts of the other two pigs that died that caused all the craziness.
Not to mention the way they would have died, right? So like in my brain, as like the spookiest thing I can think of is that my first brother died in his stick house. Yeah. So not only is he gonna come back and get the best of you, but he's gonna be in the form of like this huge stick house in the image of like a stick pig that is throwing all kinds of like just wood, nails, just anything that he can to fight the wolf itself that's supposed to be the ghost hunter. It's like, you're not going to take our next of kin.
You get the kids.
It's not going to happen. No, not going to happen, buddy. So the wolf gets the best. I mean, the wolf doesn't get the best of him at the end of this, right? They get a chance to just within that one family member, and then you say, okay, the next is the straw house. I think about like using with it being straw, just the illustration of like a pig that's got a pumpkin for a head, right? Jack-o'-lantern kind of thing. But that's the weapon that's being used as well, just kind of thrown at the pig, thrown at the wolf as he's trying to go through and take out more and more of the family members of this lone pig now. He's got his brick house, but he's actually gets a chance to
get some vengeance.
Get some vengeance, right? So that's a little spooky, if you ask me, to say the least. But no, that's just one. I think probably just without it being a bedtime, without it being any additional spooky added to it, like Goldilocks and three bears just alone. To walk into a house where there's three bears just kind of chilling, owning a house, number one, but we have different variations of how we live our lifestyles in this house. And how dare you just walk in here as a trespasser?
Maybe there's something supremely wrong with Goldilocks we don't know about.
Goldilocks
more to it than what meets the eye. Maybe Goldilocks is possessed or something. So she doesn't know that she should be in danger because she's possessed by an entity. Yeah. Put that on his head. Yeah. No. Perspective change now the horror aspects comes from the actors
and not Goldilocks.
Because now your fear factor should lie and be kind of lined up with the actual bear.
Yeah.
Like, who is this random human? Not even another bear, but just another random human. That's just like, okay. Oh, just so you know, yes. But no, so that's two. Oh, we're paused. But I think we're still live here.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, that's two that you could flip. And that's the whole thing about like creating new narratives for what you may want to say a spooky bedtime story.
Yeah.
Right.
Most of the fairy tales themselves already have, if you go through the history of them, actually horrific beginnings. So
Cinderella. That's probably
Cinderella.
one of the most horrific stories. I mean, take away what Disney did, but that story alone, I think just to fit the shoe,
Yeah.
didn't they have to mangle their feet?
I don't know about that one, but that makes sense when you think of the bonding of feet back in the day.
Yeah, I mean for the time period, right?
The
Some of it's
idea
like,
was to have your feet be for women be small and dainty, so they would put them in these blocks and wrap them until they just
mhm,
crush the feet until they fit.
right,
Basically,
and yeah, no,
having to walk and balance on that had to be painful.
like, you can't tell that story with a glass slipper without there being a lot of horrific situations going on with that inside. So no,
Jack and the Beanstalk story.
Jack and the Beanstalk, yeah, yeah. Just alone, I mean, looking at the fact that you got these the beans themselves instead of it just for me, what I would probably do to make it a little is that the beans, the stalks that grow are actually monsters.
Mm.
So if it's three beans and these three stalks of monsters are just rampaging the village at this point, and I was like, well, Jack, you know, you did this thing. Forget about the fact that giants exist in the clouds, right? And with castles and everything. Let's just say just that alone, those humongous stalks are just kind of walking through and sort of just crushing and barreling down on just the community itself to flatten it
Yeah,
so it could be like I just want to grow alone with nothing around me.
that's kind of stories. It's basically taking things that you see as mundane
Mhm.
and giving them kind of a otherworldly aspect to them, which I think is part of what Edgar Allan Poe was able to do with the Raven. You think about how innocuous that is, seeing a raven or just a bird and all the things that kind of comes with it. And now people around the world, when they see the raven, automatically will associate it with things very
Right.
horrific.
So to kind of lend into that, what Baltimore is a city, them adopting the name Raven coming from a writer. I think
Yeah.
it's just so amazing, number one. But I was driving back home and all I saw on a billboard were two big red eyes itself.
Yeah.
And that alone, just as an image with not even a full bird's face, but just a close up of the eyes itself, you just had enough sweetness within that as a mantra for a team, you're like, oh, you don't want to mess with nothing that's coming to you with red eyes, straight up looking directly at you. Oh yeah. So you should fear a Raven. So, shameless plug for football fans out there. But yeah, I mean it's effective. It's effective. So with that, we want to do if you allow, we want to do a reading. We want to do a reading. We have one of our really good friends that's going to sit down and sort of go through the Raven itself. And so we were fortunate enough to be able to get our hands on Manga Classic. Manga Classic is a company that publishes a lot of literary works and converted them into manga. And so I'm a huge fan of manga. I know a lot of folks are. And so this story itself, with us being here in Baltimore, made the most sense to say, okay, let's see what we can get out of out of these illustrations. And some of it, what you can see now, is just the front cover. But yeah, we're gonna have our reader come on in, and don't worry about the background music. It's just that's all for effect. But yes, we're going to go ahead and get started in a second and Raven. And then we're going to come back and talk a little bit about just the uh, process of reviewing something like the Raven. All right. So give us 1 second.
Hold on, hold on, hold on.
Mhm. You can always just kind of like this. Okay, well, just put it side by side. I'll be
Oh, here we go.
I'll be on the camera. It's fine.
There we go.
You got it?
Yep,
Awesome.
we are good to go now.
Okay. The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, suddenly there came a tapping, while I nodded, nearly napping. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door, as of someone gently. Only this and nothing more. Ah, distinctly I remember, it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. From my bookcase, from my book's surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the loss of Lenore. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow. Mhm. For the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before. So that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entering my entrance at my chamber door. Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more."
Okay.
But the fact is, I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping, tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened up the door. Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly forgiveness I implore. Darkness there, and nothing more." Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood where wandering fearing, but the silence has unbroken, and the stainless gave no token, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortals ever dared to dream before. This I whispered, and an echo murmured back, one word, "Lenore." Merely this and nothing more, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore?" Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning. Soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. Let me see then what threat is, and this mystery explore. Surely, said I, surely that is something at my window lattice. Let my heart be still a moment and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind and nothing more. Open here I fling the shutter, when, with many a flit and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Perched upon the bust of Phyllis, just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Not the least obseance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mane of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door, then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Ghastly grim, an ancient raven wandering from the nightly shore. Though thy chest be shorn and shaven, though, I said, art sure no craven. Tell me what thy lordly name is on that night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet has blessed with seeing a seeing bird above his chamber door. Much I marveled this ungodly fowl to hear a discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore, with such name as nevermore. Bird or beast upon the sculpted bust above his chamber door. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feather, then he fluttered, till scarcely more than muttered. On the morrow he will leave me as my hopes have flown before. Other friends have flown before. Then the bird said, nevermore. Doubtless, said I, startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, that it utters its only stock and store. Caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore of never, nevermore. But the raven, still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, then upon velvet sinking I betook myself to linking fancy into thinking what this ominous bird of yore. Straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of the bird and bust and door. What this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, ominous bird of yore meant in croaking, nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing, to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er. But those velvet violet lining, with the lamplight gloating o'er, she shall press, nevermore. Then, methought, the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen cleanser, swiling by Sephram, whose footfalls twinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thou hast lent thee, by these angels hath sent thee. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Respite, and nepenthe from my memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind and forgot this lost Lenore. Prophet, said I, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate, all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted. Thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil. Is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. On this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, tell the soul of sorrow laden if within the distant Aden, by the heaven that bends above us, by the God we both adore, it shall clasp a sainted maiden whom the angels named Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word or sign of parting, bird or friend, I shrieked, upstarting. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's plutonium shore. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy break from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door, quoth the raven. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, and the raven never flitting. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws the shadows on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on this floor shall be lifted nevermore. The end.
Right.
It is, oh, there we go.
All right. So I'm happy to show you the voice behind the reading. Thank you so much,
My
Jennifer,
pleasure.
for being on board with us.
That sure was a spooky bedtime story.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that was definitely more in the lines of those campfire stories we were talking about.
Yeah.
I know I would not be having the best night's sleep if I were going to just do this now. I'm a little scared now myself.
Oh no,
Um,
no. But I think that's the beauty of being able to put, images to words, right?
Mhm.
There's something soothing for me, just looking through just this one image that we have right here.
Mhm.
Just speaks volumes from the artist that did an amazing work on this one big splash panel. I mean, it speaks volumes. That could have easily been the cover of the book to pull you in, and you would have. I would even go as far as to say, you know, because we're here in Baltimore, walking around with this image, people would probably connect the dots at some point to be like, oh, is that Poe? Is it Ravens? Okay, how's this tied in? So, in writing a review for something like this, putting something together, what I think always works best is, brief description, kind of just tells you not all of what this one story is, but just enough that it's a fearful evening, man versus
Well, so that's what I was just thinking about, right? So the antagonist in this is kind of his loss, his grief, right?
Mhm.
And the pain he's feeling over losing his lover.
Mhm.
And then you have the Raven, who's kind of the representation of that. That it's it's so beautiful to me how it's take this from my heart, take
Mhm.
this from over me, and this bird is representing that hanging over him.
Yeah, this you'll never have it again,
Hmm.
right? Like the
Hmm.
whole thing is like you've only had this one love. At least that's kind of like what I'm getting from the constant reminder. Like, yeah, you said all these things,
Yeah.
but never again. You know,
Yeah, no more Lenore.
no more
Never
Lenore,
more. Yeah.
no more Lenore. And so I think that's just a great
Yeah,
way
and
to
then the
take it.
contrast of like the visuals of Lenore and how whenever he's talking about Lenore, it's like with the angels and this very
Mhm.
soft and beautiful um, uh, presence in his life, and then you have that the bird of grief as this like dark shadowed figure
Yes,
that is
yes,
just hanging over his life. I
yes.
found it so beautiful that contrast.
Hmm.
And so for me, like with bedtime stories, I think most good bedtime stories have that contrast of like, um, good and evil is maybe a little um, too plain a
Hmm.
way to put it, but that love and struggle and those,
Love
um,
and trouble.
yeah, and the way
Hmm.
that those can pull on each other.
Hmm.
Um,
And it feels like you're being tormented, right?
mhm.
Because
Mhm.
I see the raven as his heart,
Mhm.
right? Just actually speaking truth, right? To back to himself, right? But because he has that love for Lenore and is so deep for him, that he doesn't want to believe the truth, that they're actually done. I mean, going a little in a different direction as far as emote, but I mean, this is what it's supposed to convey, right?
Mhm.
Or at least for me as the listener to your audio, it pulls you in, especially at the moments where you gave the emphasis for that word nevermore. Like I haven't counted how many actual times it appears in this, but I bet you there's some additional meaning even
Mhm.
with that,
Yeah,
right?
and the way like that's also just how masterful Poe was with his writing also,
Hmm.
right? It's like the way that the Lenore and Nevermore play on each other and
Hmm.
come back as refrain, and there's this longing that's almost in the cadence of the words,
Right.
right? And
Just like
like,
that.
ah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It's
that's
it's the it's the
beautiful.
fact that he chose to use those two words, right?
Mhm.
The human itself, Lenore, and Nevermore itself, just those two, and they have that sequence of emotion rhyming directly between the two, pulling you
Mhm.
constantly, like you're here, like now come over here, now do this, now
Yeah.
you're that. Now you thought you can go to this corner of
Mhm.
where you're where you're living and think that
Mm.
you can escape pain or escape reality or truth.
Yeah, and I think it's cool because you can follow that in the way that like the the words go, where you're like, okay, he's thinking about Lenore, and everything gets kind of light again,
Hmm.
and we're with the angels, and then it's like, nope, nevermore,
Yeah,
like
this
and
is like
that raven kind of brings him back,
hmm.
and um, yeah, it's really incredibly well done. I think
Yeah.
um, the lyricism of the Raven kind of makes for a good bedtime story as well.
Hmm.
Even though it has dark kind of, it's a dark story, but if you're just listening to the cadence of, someone reading it, or if you're just going about reading it yourself, it can be very comforting. It's comforting in a way, and I think that also speaks to the way grief can be comforting, right? He loves her, and he doesn't.
Yeah.
And that raven, as much as he wants it to go, like, and he's like, go,
Yeah.
don't leave a feather, don't leave
He
anything
doesn't
on
want to
my
be reminded.
heart. But at the
Yeah.
same time, he's like, don't remind me of the nevermore. Just give me Lenore. And like, so that idea,
You
and
can end you can end all of my pain now if you just
don't
give me
remind me.
Lenore.
Yeah.
Don't remind me. No, she's not coming back. But if there was a way, hey,
Hey,
love to see her
you know,
again. Hmm.
and I think so many of us can relate to lost love or the loss of loved ones. And So I think that this is really, for a story that was, I mean, for a poem or a story that was written, you know, almost 200 years ago, it still really gets down to the heart of humanity and
Just got
love
me
and
choked up.
what it's like, what it's like to really have loved someone. So I'm honored that you all took the opportunity to listen to me read the poem, and I think it was a great choice for a bedtime story.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and just through illustration part of it, right? Because I know we see the one image here. I do want to back up and look at, and forgive the delay, but I wanted to bring the one here. Not, this is it. Yes,
Yeah.
because within this illustration itself, right, the artist was able to capture very little words within that, but it's so much emotion within this one illustration. So if I was reviewing just this panel alone as just the beginning or the intro to me, even like, what is this story about? Why is this guy agonizing, and who is this person in the shadow that you can't see but you see?
You know, and then you got the bird up top. You're like, what's
Yeah.
up with that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot to take in from top to bottom, and I think that's the masterful way that within this sequence of the poem itself, being able to capture the emotion within the one illustration with other pages to go is a lot, for it not to be like the final page, but it's the reflection of love lost, right, with it. And then just the shading, and I know with it, with the hair, how it goes into it, there's a little bit of chaos within that, but there's chaos within the main person who's in pain, not to mention the angle of which they chose to do this. It's at a worm's eye view, because you're seeing from the back of the main character who's doing the suffering, but you know they're on the floor. But you also are getting another perspective where you're seeing the bird still from that same worm's eye view, you know, kind of looking down, menacing, but also as a reminder, right, that, you know, this is the lost love, and hey, through the pain, maybe you'll get through it, maybe you won't, but at the end of the day, the raven is like, hey man, I'm here for truth. So yeah. No, I think this was well done, well read as well. High five. Yes. And no, I think, you know, this opportunity to actually, you know, work with the Poe House Baltimore here is something that my organization, Artway Alliance, has been able to do for the last couple of years. But now having a Poe in Comics actual exhibit that we're literally sitting in, so does, you know, as long as, you know, the sun's not setting, we still got a light behind us. But this alone just sets a tone that even through other illustrations that are in this book, if you came down, I think you would feel and connect with it even more. Even more.
And guess what? We'll be here all week. So
Yes, all week.
through.
Yes, absolutely. Please do. And thanks for everyone who tuned in, and absolutely appreciate the opportunity. And as we were mentioning, this is the book we were using from Manga Classics.
Stories of Edgar Allan
Stories of
Poe.
Edgar Allan Poe. Anthology of a lot of his, a lot of the work that he did just translated into manga. So
It's a win-win.
it's a win, absolutely win. So thanks again for your attention, and yeah.
Yeah, have a great day, everyone.
Yes.